But most importantly, we've pretty much doubled our conversions in the early data.
It's a good time now to start thinking
To
about
think
how
about
these factors are going to impact your website, basically.
It probably matters more today than it mattered, a couple of years ago.
Where is most of your traffic landing first? It's actually not the homepage for us.
There's definitely some cool stuff that you guys can steal from this.
Honestly, in our experience, it didn't exactly go as smoothly as that. Like we definitely had some ups and downs with that.
And he was like, I don't know if I can do this because I can't do JavaScript, for example. And I was like, perfect, you're hired. We've just completed our biggest redesign project in a while with the new Authority Hacker site. And while doing it, we've uncovered tons of new tech that site owners should be using to make their site scale way better. And we're going to share them with you in this episode. On top of that, we've already managed to more than double our conversions using some weird new elements that we're going to talk about today. And this is a big deal now that Google sends a lot less traffic to websites. And we've also specifically built the website to increase engagement based on what we've learned from the Google leaks. I mean, we've even used AI to help build some of it. So whether you're also considering rebuilding one of your sites or you just want to upgrade your tech, tools, and processes, there is something for you in this podcast, and it's about to get really nerdy. Before we get started, I want to say a quick thank you to today's sponsor, Search Intelligence, the best place to go if you need a high-quality digital PR campaign done for you. More on them later. For now, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the Authority Hacker podcast. Today we are actually celebrating the launch of our brand new website on authorityhacker.com. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. I'm sure you will probably find some issues still with it. We're still kind of like fine-tuning some stuff, etc. So don't fall on us if you find a tiny bug on this, etc. But so far it's done pretty well for us. We're pretty happy with it. We have a tiny bit of boost of organic traffic. But most importantly, we've pretty much doubled our conversions in the early data that we have, and we're pretty excited to essentially share the whole process that was behind this redesign so that actually you guys can take some of this and implement this on potentially your sites if you want to do this, especially as traffic is quite scarce these days. Like, it's obviously quite important to improve your conversion rates, and that's one of the main things that motivated this redesign. And so today I have Mark with me. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good, thanks. And yes, it hasn't it's more than doubled our conversion rate. I just checked. So we only have a couple days of data, but so far so good.
It's not too much data yet, but even if it falls by like 30%, 40%, I'll still be happy, basically.
Yeah.
It's like there's definitely some cool stuff that you guys can steal from this. And we're just going to walk you through also all the tech setup and the rebuild setup and how you can essentially run a similar project. It's been running for a long time, by the way. Like, I was checking the early Figmas. The first Figmas, they came to us in September 2023, right? So it was literally...
Do you want to just explain what a Figma is for people that maybe haven't used it before?
So Figma is the tool that designers use to basically mock up your site. Like, back in the day, people used to do that in Photoshop. Now there are actually dedicated tools for UI, UX. Figma is the most popular one. So when you hire a designer, which we have done in this case, they tend to deliver the design in Figma, and then it's kind of like up to you or your dev to transform that Figma into an actual website that is responsive and is interactive and so on. This is really for the kind of like visual part and brainstorming what it's going to look like. So yeah, the first thing that we got back from the designer was September 2023. So I have a feeling we started thinking about it in sometime.
It was August when we started planning.
Yeah.
So almost a year ago as we record this.
So it's a long project. It took a long time. But I think before we jump into kind of the nitty-gritty, the details, and I have a lot of cool tips, details that people can use, tools as well, resources. I've made a list of resources people can use to actually do that, resources I've used. I've built a lot of that site, by the way. I just wanted to point out, I didn't build everything, and you'll see that, but the building, I would say I've probably done 70% of it, something like this. So it's a lot of it was me, but at the same time, it's like we teach people to build websites. I feel like it was a good exercise to actually refresh myself on the new GenerateBlocks, which we're going to talk about. But first, let's jump onto why you would want to do this. And I think the first one that I put in the list is, I think, the one that's going to appeal to the most people listening to this podcast. And that's kind of the new way Google evaluates website. I put Google NavBoost. NavBoost is the name of that, is how they named that engagement factor, basically, on the Google leaks.
Yeah, this was on the Google leaks. So if you haven't watched our news channel, and you should go subscribe to Authority Hacker News, we did a big video on this where basically someone had discovered a treasure trove of Google ranking factors, and one of them was this concept of NavBoost. to sum it up, I guess it's fair to say there's a lot of factors based on user engagement, a lot more factors based on user engagement than Google were perhaps letting on or implying from communications with them before. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like, they have a lot of metrics. Like one of the main ones is called long clicks. And we assume that this means that it's like when people click on your site and stay for a long time before they go back to Google search or they go somewhere else, right? And it's like they have long clicks, but also they have like a metric called last long click, for example, which like they measure when was the last time someone stayed long on your page. And like one of the speculations from Mike King was like, if people haven't engaged for a long time on your page recently, then that probably means the content is outdated or not as good as it used to be. And that's kind of like the source of content decay, for example, right? All of that to say that like time spent on your site, engagement on your site, the depth at which people go on your site, it probably matters more today than it mattered, a couple of years ago. And so that means that the way websites are built need to be also rethought in a way that drives engagement a little bit further, rather than most sites tend to go for monetization right away, like a big comparison table on top of the page, like, click as fast as possible, ads in your face, etc. And maybe we need to kind of like pull that back down a bit so that we can improve these metrics and hopefully get some Google traffic for that. Obviously, the site is just gone live, so it's like I'm not going to say that we got the effect from this. It's probably going to play around core updates. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I hope, fingers crossed, that goes well for us. But even if it was stable, I'm okay.
This concept of Google and other platforms looking at user engagement as a way to determine what to rank, basically, and this doesn't function just in search, but so all social media sites use this as the primary way they order content on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So it seems to be like that is the best way to do it, and a lot of the more traditional ranking factors at Google's CAD, your content and links, while they're still very important, would you say that it's maybe like further down the pecking order or potentially could go that way in future?
It works exactly like social media. So it's like, followers used to be very important on social media. Followers are basically backlinks maybe or something, or, you know what I mean? Like some of these like historical metrics. Well, it still matters, right? It's like if you have lots of followers, you'll get more initial reach with your content. But if people don't engage with it, the platform kind of like tanks your reach even though you have lots of followers. Probably works a similar way now. No, I mean, to be honest, we see a lot of big authority sites also ranking well, but there's also big authority sites that have tanked recently, right? It's like Forbes, etc. have tanked actually, for example,
It's more, I guess what I'm saying is like the direction of travel for all sites and all platforms on the internet is focusing more on user intent. So even though it's, I'm not dissing the whole content links thing. I still think they're
still matters a lot,
the most important thing, right? But I think the direction of travel is this. So it's a good time now to start thinking about how these factors are going to impact your website, basically.
Yeah, and so, an amateurish design, it reduces your on-site engagement. Like, you can put the same exact content on like a default WordPress install and then on like, a big publisher, and people are probably going to be interacting a lot more with the content on like a big publisher site that's well designed than they will with the default WordPress install. And essentially, that's this factor. The redesign essentially helps you with that, provided you actually improve things up. I hope we improve things up a little bit, but I think in terms of responsiveness, etc., we did. So it's like, that helps you marginally improve your engagement. And the thing is, like, we've done a lot of like tiny things to try to essentially improve engagement. So one thing that we have a lot on the site is actually lots of very long articles. They're not always the best these days, but a lot of the topics we talk about tend to need lots of content on the page to actually cover the full topic. And so one of the challenges that we had was like, how do people find information on these large pages of content without necessarily reading everything, but still not being daunted by how long the page is, and essentially click back and going for another search result, right? That was kind of like a big thing that we did. So we put a lot of work in our interactive table of content, for example. So you'll see the table of content. It's on the left sidebar. It wasn't there on most posts before the redesign, but now it's here. But also, as you scroll down, actually, the items that you've passed, they now disappear. They go back up, basically. And you only see the H2s, but when you are within an H2 and there are H3s under, it actually just expands these H3s, so you can actually you can navigate within, 5 to 12 H2s, basically, on the sidebar, so it's not too overwhelming. And if you click on one of them, all the H3s below it will expand, so you can further narrow down your research of the content, for example. So that's one of the things that we've done. Another thing is because the TLC is scrolling back up, like it's hard to reach back up to higher parts of the page that you've already scrolled. So we put this scroll up button on the right. So the idea is like the navigation is like you can essentially dig down in the content, and then if you feel like you've missed something, you need to go back up to re-see your whole TOC, you click on the up button, and then you just get to find that again, basically. So the idea was like, how do we make this more interactive and easier for people to understand what's going on? We added a read bar as well, so it's like pretty basic. A lot of sites have this, but we didn't. It's basically filling on top of your screen when you scroll down, so that you actually see how much is left in the article. And it doesn't take into account, the auto box, the call to actions at the end, all of that, and so on. And so that just helps people get a bit of feedback of like, how much is left or whatever. Another thing that we've done is we do a lot of list content. Like people like lists, the kind of content that tends to rank really well. And it's very simple, but just the fact that the numbers of the lists are offset off the content area means that you can just quickly see where you are in the list and kind of like, again, it makes it more scannable, basically. And there's a lot of work that's been done on like font size, the width of the content area, the elements, etc. Again, to improve the readability. So yeah, that's what we're talking. Like I wanted to give examples of like practical things that you can do to improve engagement with your content. These are the kind of things on top of like a more modern design that we've been working on the new site, for example.
So, quick question here then. Why didn't we just add these elements to the old site? Why redesign the entire thing?
Because, well, that's the third point in the list, and that's technical debt. So it's like, I'm going to jump to this right away because you asked, right? But like, first of all, site tech evolves slowly. Like if you check week to week, like not much happens, but actually a lot has happened in the last 3-4 years in terms of the tools that you use to build your site. And even though you may be using the same tools, whether you use like GeneratePress like we do, or Elementor or anything like that, they've added lots of functions since you built your site initially. And so it's quite difficult sometimes to reintegrate these things into an existing design. But in our case specifically, that's because the site was poorly built. And we had someone else that helped us build that site. I was not as involved in a previous version of the site. And as a result, we were unable to do many things because many things were kind of like hard-coded in a theme and poorly built. And as a result, we ended up having pages that were not touched for like 4 or 5 years.
Can you give an example of some of the things we weren't able to do then?
Category pages, for example, they were all hard-coded. So it's like, we apart from changing the links in the lists of links that you would find there, we could not change the content. We could not change anything very easily. And as a result, we never did it. And as a result, the pages got stale and out of date. And as a result, some of these pages were losing traffic because, well, fair enough, they were not maintained properly. And so like really that allowed us to essentially weep out all the tech that we don't like. Like one of the main goals with that site as well is like everyone that knows how to use WordPress can edit every part of the site without code. And that's what we have right now. For, I would say 95% of it, there's maybe a few odd cases where we had to use some custom code. But for 95% of it, it's all in the block editor. And then you can see the list of elements used on one page when you open it. You can click it, you can edit it, and that makes it so much easier.
I think this is a really common challenge that a lot of people face when they're redesigning a site.
Yeah.
If they're involving an external developer or a developer from the team, is that from a developer's perspective, it's very easy to build a site, like hard code everything in a clean way without having to think of how people are going to use them. But as a marketer, you're concerned about how people that don't know HTML, CSS,
Exactly.
PHP, how they can actually go in and do stuff quickly and easily. And that's really been a big problem. And it costs us, I think, a lot of money in our development cycle, a lot of time in our development cycle here. So definitely some lessons we've taken away from that in this one.
Yeah, I was willing to compromise on design and functionality for the ability to quickly do things in this new version, and it's so much better. Like, for example, like releasing a full lead magnet from like having nothing to having an opt-in page, having a pop-up, and having the email go out delivering the lead magnet to you. Now, before it would take us like half a day to do this. Now it takes 15 minutes, for example. That just gives you an idea of like the kind of speed that we gain by doing this. So it cost us a lot of time to rebuild, but now it's like deploying a lot of funnel stuff, etc. is 10 times easier. And I think that's quite important. I think that's the reason why a lot of people end up using expensive third-party tools, like, they buy like Elite Pages or ClickFunnels, etc. Because in the end, they lost control of their site, and they're unable to actually do things there. And it's like, you can do all these things for free on WordPress. Like we can build entire crazy funnels and crazy functions, etc., without too much tech, without coding anything. The problem is most people outsource to developers that build in a way that prevents them from being able to do it. And as a result, you end up having to pay for another subscription, and you just kind of like stack your tech in a bit of a shitty way. So this was an opportunity for us to clean up a lot of stuff. And on top of that, another reason to redesign your site, and something that we've teased earlier, is the conversion rate, right? It's like, as you evolve, as you learn things, you know how, like, you essentially have things that you'd like to implement on your site, but if your technical debt prevents you from doing it, you end up not doing it. Like adding more lead magnets, for example, in our case, that like there was 3 new lead magnets that came out with the site. And obviously in a world where traffic is harder and harder to come by, conversion rate is becoming increasingly important, right? You need to convert your leads. So here's a few things, for example, that we've done to improve our conversion rate where we did the redesign, because that was one of our goals as well. Like I wanted to finance what the money we spent on this by improving conversion rate, basically to justify it. Basically, like more money equals I can spend money now. I tried something new that I've never seen on any other site, I think. You know how on social media, like there's these link in bio things where you click on it and you have these link trees, and then it's just like you have a bunch of buttons to like whatever that creator is doing, basically, like, book a consultation call with me, download my lead magnet, buy my product, watch my last YouTube video, etc. I decided that the right sidebar on the blog was probably a cool place to experiment with that format, essentially, because people want choices. Not everyone wants the same thing, etc. But it's quite difficult to put like clean, big call to actions for all these things. Like there's just not enough space on the sidebar, especially if you're like on a small laptop. It's only for desktop. So it's like, I'm just saying that. It's only for desktop in our case, but because I can't put it on mobile. But I might even stick it on top of posts on mobile, actually, because it's working so well. So we've done actually this kind of like link tree scrolling with you on the right on the desktop. It's working really well. I'm pretty impressed so far. The second thing that we've done is we've redesigned a lot of in-content CTAs. And I'm going to talk about the system we've used. We have now a dynamic update system. So if we one day want to change what the lead magnet is, we want to change the design of it, etc., we can site-wide update everything super quick. And that, again, we had lots of CTAs that were like old and not updated, not maintained because they were on old pages or whatever. And sometimes these pages, they don't get lots of traffic, but when you have like hundreds of pages that don't get lots of traffic, that you don't bother updating because you're like, what does it matter? There's 50 visits per month. It actually adds up to a fair amount of conversions, whereas now we actually have a way to centrally maintain all these things that generate money for us, and that's a big upgrade for us.
I think it's also you talked about the ease of use for anyone without dev skills being able to go in and deploy a lead magnet, say like quickly. That's huge because it allows other people on our team to start taking initiative and do these things.
Yep.
Like in the past, or specifically you've always been the bottleneck in the company. If someone wanted to do this, it's like, try and find half a day of Gail's time and work with him to build this out. Good luck.
And that never happened. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like now it's like there's also a central place. I'm going to talk about all these systems in a bit when we talk about the building. I just like want to finish on the new conversion stuff so people can go check it out. We have a new bottom of the page. I call it a slide. So, when you get to we used to have a call to action at the end of our page, but it was like a small section that would like, take a little bit of your screen. Now, the point is, I call it a slide because it takes your entire screen space when you scroll. And the idea is like, when you finish an article, it's almost like you get a CTA as you keep scrolling the page, basically. And it just sends you to a lead magnet, and that seems to get a lot more opt-ins.
And what's that built in?
GenerateBlocks, all of it.
Okay.
GenerateBlocks for the design, and the pop-up is opt-in monster. So that's literally 2 pieces of tech that are at play here, but like all the site is just GenerateBlocks and GeneratePress. Actually, we barely have anything else on top of that. We've kept it really lean. That's why it's pretty fast, actually, because there's not too much on there, even though we managed to do a pretty good design, I think. But yeah, implementing just these things like the link tree, the redesigned content CTAs that we can actually centrally update so that we can maintain it even on no traffic pages, and a new bottom of page slide. I haven't actually changed the pop-ups because I wanted to see the baseline of like new site versus old site without changing anything at this point. So the pop-ups are exactly the same, yet our conversions have pretty much doubled at this point, which is pretty interesting and shows like that while pop-ups are powerful, they're not everything, and you can capture leads in other ways, actually. I think that's the main ways. I put like branding as well in there. And for me, branding is part of engagement, basically, where essentially like if your site looks like a default WordPress site, or if your branding is not better than the DALL-E generated images, you're unlikely to get people's trust and they're unlikely to engage with your content. But for us, that was like new color palette, new logo, new formatting elements like images, bullet points, spacing, toggles, cards, buttons, etc. Like basically rebranding everything. That helped a bit, but it's probably the least good reason to redesign your site. Like if you're tired of your branding, like that's where you lose money. You need some financial incentive for it,
If you're just doing it for branding reasons, you're probably procrastinating, and there's other things you should be doing.
There's something else you could do that could make you money.
That being said, there is something to be said about having a site you are genuinely proud of, and that is also doesn't look scammy and like looks legit. I'm thinking specifically from a link building perspective. Our old homepage had this thing about building profitable. We teach you to build profitable websites. And sure, if you listen to 300 and something episodes of the podcast, you know and trust us, then fine. But if you're a link prospect that's never heard of us before, you come to that, you read that head, the first thing you see is, well, what's the angle here? What are they selling? So I think from like a link acquisition perspective, having a really solid homepage that looks very trustworthy is good. And from my perspective, when I feel proud of this site, this homepage, like I'm much more likely to, initiate business activity with people, whether that be link building or direct sales or whatever.
I'm not too proud of the photo, but other than that, it's fine. Now, I think another thing I did on the homepage to improve conversions for link building is I actually put social proof numbers of the business. I put like number of students, number of podcast downloads, number of email subscribers, and then below that, there's also logos of companies that have featured us. Like the point is also like when people check our site kind of like quickly to see who we are, it's like it just builds trust through social proof, basically.
This is like on that specific point. So we used, ACF, advanced custom fields to do that. And we basically created this Authority Hackers numbers section within WordPress. And then once a month, someone from our team goes through and updates all those numbers. They'll check, how many subscribers we have in the active campaign, and then add it in there. And there's a version for the full number, the number rounded to the nearest 1,000, and then the number expressed is like 175K with a letter like that, like the shortened version. And I think the fact that we update that every month, it also shows a level of trust as well, because how many people will just throw some random, we've got 1,000 clients, and never update that for 2 years. And if people see that not being updated, then it's a small thing, but there's an element of trust to that as well.
I don't think many people monitor it, if I'm honest. But I know it counts for you, so it's fine, basically. But it's the fact that you put the numbers forward, it helps.
It's kind of like consistency. If you're saying, we have 13,000 subscribers in one place and 14,000 in the other and 15,000 in the other, it's like...
That's why we have one central place for this, basically. We have a whole shortcode system for this with these numbers, so we actually don't put them manually each time, we just put the shortcode.
And now for a quick word from the episode sponsor, Search Intelligence.
We got 20 links and placements on massive websites such as The Express, Mirror, Daily Record, and many more, with a campaign about the pros and cons of popular diets. Not bad. This is exactly how we've done it. Our client is a very popular fitness client. We have asked them to provide thorough expert commentary about the pros and cons of the most popular diets. Once we have this information, we put this in a nice email and send it out to 15,000, yes, 15,000 journalists from around the world that write about fitness. So good. And unhealthy. Big publications picked up our story from the email, giving our client massive, juicy, saucy, healthy links that are 100% relevant to their website and that will keep the rankings of the website in a great shape. You see what I've done there? I hope this case study inspires and that you will start leveraging expert commentary type campaigns to land links to your or your client's website, just like we've done it with this campaign.
Thanks again to the sponsor of this episode, Search Intelligence. If you're looking to boost your link building with high-quality digital PR campaigns, head over to search-intelligence.co.uk. And now, back to the episode. So we talked about why you should consider redesigning your site. To remind you, high engagement equals higher Google rankings these days. Conversion rate improvement. In our case, we are at double now. I don't know if it's going to hold, but even if it doesn't fully, I'm still pretty happy at a plus 50%. And technical depth, I would say, are the three main ones, and branding is kind of like a cherry on the cake, basically. Now let's walk through the rebuilding process. If you want to go through this, here are the steps that you should follow to do the same thing, right? And you know, it's like personally, when I start projects, I'm very, very slow. I'd spend a lot of time thinking and planning, basically. Like if you've taken the authority site system, for example, you see like the niche research is like huge, and that's because, and that's the same for the website, right? It's like, before you jump in, install a WordPress website and start dabbling with some WordPress theme or whatever, there's a lot of steps that need to go through first. And the first one is actually establishing your goals. And so what do you want? Why are you redesigning your website? And I think that phase is important because you should probably be able to talk yourself out of the idea of redesigning your website. It's not going to actually help your business like in a tangible way. Are you going to make more money, basically? And so again, these are the reasons why: high engagement rate, higher conversions. So it's like, do I want more opt-ins? Do I want more affiliate link clicks? Do I need a stronger brand that people recognize, etc.? If you don't need any of these things, don't redesign your website. Don't bother. Go do something else that will help more than redesigning your website, because as you saw, it took us a really long time, actually. And the point is, like, you should write down like 3 main goals, basically, and these are your North Star in the redesign. The way it works is like, every time I was associating some resources with like a new task with resource, I was going to take resources, either money or time. I was just asking, like, is this improving our opt-ins? Is it improving our conversion rate? If not, do we really need this, basically? Because it's super easy to add lots of things to your website if you don't actually keep a North Star, basically. Once you've established these goals, then I really like making an inspiration list. I can actually show on screen the one that I did for Authority Hacker. I have a design on, actually, you know what? We're going to put the link to that document in the description on YouTube, so you guys can go and check that out. These are my personal notes. I didn't intend to release them, so don't be mad if it's not perfect. But the idea was to just find URLs and just highlight what I liked about them and what I'd like to see on the website. So you see, for example, the first one is Block Tyrant. And what I liked about Block Tyrant, one of the things was the numbered headings with the number outside the content area, because it was easier to scan, for example. And so it is highlighted in this document and not translated in the final design, right? I like the images that are bigger than the content area. We have that element now on the site as well, for example. I like the content boxes, etc. I had the Ahrefs blog where I like the 2 columns that scroll with you, basically. We have that on the new site. But we didn't copy any one of these sites. We took small pieces from their design that we liked, and we implemented that. And we didn't implement everything as well. For example, I say we like the Ahrefs photo box with the big photos that people have, but we didn't do that. Like, we did something else. And it's like, don't copy sites, but like, that's why I say people should take 5 to 8 inspirations. And we have some weird ones, not just online marketing sites. I have like the points guy in there, for example. And it's like, what I like is their TOC, the reading bar, and I think the authors on top as well, and how they break down the author, editor, etc., which we also have on the new site, for example. So it's like, take a lot of sites that you like, and then essentially take screenshots of the elements that you like. And that's going to be the base of what you're going to be using to then work with a designer. And I think most people should hire a designer. Like, I could build the site, but I don't think I could design it. I felt it was easier to build than to design. And it's a job, right? It's like, it's something that...
Yeah, I mean, we've struggled with this over the years, finding designers that... Because you need a designer that knows what the marketing side of the business wants, and also you need a developer, someone to build it, who knows what the designer can do, what the limitations of the tech are, and ideally they should kind of push back on each other, and you have this kind of like 3-way system of everyone kind of trying to like balance out what can be done and what can't. But honestly, in our experience, it didn't exactly go as smoothly as that. Like we definitely had some ups and downs of that. We hired our designer through, actually, someone we hired on Upwork to do something else recommended this guy. And so that's how we found him, was through that. And he was great, like really, really talented designer, like by far the best I've ever worked with in terms of quality. Pretty expensive.
By far the most expensive too, I was going to say.
$150 an hour, something like that.
Yeah.
So you have to be quite kind of direct about what you want and what you don't want, so you don't end up spending a lot of time doing stuff you're not going to use. And the problem you often have with designers, and problem we had, is that you designed something that was beautiful, but it was very, very difficult to build. We had this like 5-column system with these little like mini columns that had extra effects and things like that in it.
It exists. It's on the site actually.
It's yeah,
it was hard to do.
It's quite difficult, and I'm not sure if we would do that again. Going into it. So yeah, we had a lot of these kind of challenges, and I think the problem, if you're working with freelancers specifically, is that often they don't feel as empowered to push back against other people in your company if they're saying, "Oh, we shouldn't do this," or we need to do it in this other way. They just want to kind of do the best design they can, which is somewhat understandable.
So the thing is, like you mentioned, it's expensive. I think people hold the price and they're just like they think of turning the podcast off right now. So don't run away. You can save money on this. And the thing is, like when you hire such designers, you don't need them to design your entire website. You just need them to kind of establish the base of the design for the site, so that you can then just derive from there and keep building. In his case, if I open the Figma for the site right now, there's literally 2 pages that are completed with a few variations of them, but it's got 2 core pages, right? And the way we decided to go with this project is, I think what you should do is you should take the type of content that you have the most on your website and start there, because
so like
that's
a blog post for most people then.
Yeah, for us it was that, because that's what 90% of your traffic is going to experience anyway, right? It's like it's cool to have a cool homepage, etc. I mean, homepage is quite important, but like other pages on your site, it doesn't really matter. What matters is like that first impression, and you do a good job there. And I like to make this the core.
It's not even the first impression. It's like, where is most of your traffic landing first? It's actually not the homepage for us. It's the blog post page.
Exactly. Yeah. Even after updates, believe it or not. Yeah. So like that's why we started. Actually, we were like, you know what? We want to make a really, really good blog page. And what you do after you're done with that blog page, which took us a lot of back and forth. I don't know if Matt can flash some versions of this from the Figma, but that'd be interesting. But once you built a page, then what we decided to do is to go to the other side of the website, go to a completely different page, and see if the design principles we established for the blog post still held when we build another page on the site, and kind of like work on both pages at the same time so that they balance each other, right? So we went to the homepage after that, basically. And that's the only 2 pages we did together, right? We did blog posts, but we did like, review posts, podcast posts, video posts, like all of that, like random posts. We did all these things, including a lot of elements that are not yet built, but I intend to build, like a mobile table of content, for example, that I would really like to build. And so to work on these pages, you need to work on a brief for each page. And that's quite important as well. The 2 things I did for the page briefing, again, I can give the document in the notes if you guys want. I'll give you my auto page brief, for example. We didn't build everything. In the end, you'll see you'll have to make concessions when you build. But basically, again, I found 4 auto pages that I really liked. Again, Ahrefs was good, but SEMrush was good, Search Engine Journal was good, and The Verge was good. I like The Verge as well. And after that, you give your designer the different sections you want, right? So I wanted in the hero section, I wanted a long bio, I wanted the photo, I wanted social links, websites, and email icon. I wanted some expertise tags so that we can do that in the schema, but also visually. I wanted the position, like is it a freelance writer? Is it an editor in the company? Is it anything like that? I wanted a grid with the best articles, where they are, the podcasts, where they may have been, if they have been there. We haven't built that, by the way, but that was the brief initially. There was also you may have seen me there. I wanted external links of where people have appeared online, most recent article, and then other auto grids, for example. So you want to make a document like that so that your designer can look at what the pages look like, look at the basis of the design that you've established on your first page, and then look at the sections that they're supposed to build in, because otherwise they're never going to build exactly what you want, right? So that is pretty much the process that you want to do with your designer for each page you're building, but you don't need all pages to be built. Like a couple pages can be built. After that, you can take over, or you can take someone cheaper if you want.
And at least in our experience, it's quite common that you have all these grand ideas, and then sometimes when you see them on the page with everything else, it's like, oh, that's too much. Or when you look at it, you think this is going to be a pain in the ass to build, or it's going to slow down the site. So it's very common that you kind of that you have that initial
start big
list, and then you start cutting things. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the auto pages, to be honest, it's like we want to make it better eventually, but it just wasn't worth waiting. Like it's like, you know, at some point you just need to launch the site.
This is another thing with the whole design process, and we get into it. Is like you don't have to finish everything to launch. It just needs to be kind of functional and usable. There's many things on our site. The table of contents menu, functionally it works quite well, but we definitely kind of optimize that and tweak that. But why wait to launch it? You can optimize that after it's launched.
Yeah, like for example, it doesn't exist on mobile, but I want to make a mobile version of it, for example. Like that's something that's quite important and feeds our goal of higher engagement. Therefore, I think it's worth putting effort into it. So basically, you do your page briefs, you find your designer, and then you work on Figma. We mentioned Figma before. Most designers are going to work on Figma. Some may work on like some other, like I think there's like some Affinity Publisher and a few others that may be similar tools, but work similarly. And once you've done that piece of work with your designer, the back and forth, like that can take a while, then comes the time to actually picking the tech that you're gonna use to build the site, because obviously it needs to be built. And it's like, I think I thought about the tech before, but obviously the design dictates the tech as well. And you need to be a little careful. And really it's a game of like, you need to educate yourself. Like I was binging WordPress YouTube channels like a madman.
Are there any specific ones you want to shout out that were good?
Yeah. I'm going through this. But I'm just saying that I'll give my recommendations, but in general, like there's no like it's gonna be very difficult to trust anyone because everyone has a different opinion on this, and you're gonna have to make your own opinion. Most of these tools have a refund policy. I bought so many at that time and set up random test sites, etc., to just test the most challenging parts of the design right away to see if it would work or not. I landed on two tools that would have worked, right? The first one is Bricks. So Bricks is basically Elementor, but actually better. And what it is, it's you know, it's kind of like what pro designers use. If I was a full-time designer, I would probably learn Bricks at a high level because it's probably the most advanced WordPress builder on the market, and it outputs quite clean code. It's quite fast and everything. Unlike many other page builders, it's very, very, very good. And it's a real what you see is what you get editor, so you really see the page rendered when you work on it, which is quite nice compared to the block editor on WordPress. They have a really good class system, and I'm going to talk about class systems a little bit later because it's a very big part of redesigning a site these days on WordPress, and something that most marketers have no idea about, and I think it's a problem. But Bricks has also a lot of advanced plugins that allow you to even make like custom animations. You know, you can make basically an Apple sales page with Bricks. Like that's the level of stuff that you can go. I'll give you some good plugins that you can look at if you want to look at Bricks. One is called Advanced Themer that basically adds a lot of like advanced options to Bricks. Really, I can't say otherwise. Core Framework is a CSS framework that allows you to create lots of custom classes that allow you to, again, streamline your website. Custom classes that allow you to create variables of like spacing or size, etc., that you can reuse in many places and update later. And then BrickForge, that is one that allows you to do crazy animations, kind of like slide effects, etc., very advanced web design stuff. Like really, Bricks elevates WordPress to like the world class of building websites, along with like the more custom CSS that a lot of devs are using. But it's kind of like Photoshop, right? It's like it's a job. It's a full-time job to learn to be good at it. And that's kind of the big drawback of Bricks. It's like it's a lot of work to learn. And most marketers, I don't think they'll be able to learn it. And you will need to be able to do some CSS and understand some stuff like that if you want to get the most of it. It's not fully what you see is what you get. It's enough what you see is what you get to do most things, but then you need to jump in and do some code, right? So that's Bricks. If you are very, very ambitious, that's probably where the direction you should pick in terms of tech. And then the second option was GeneratePress, GenerateBlocks, right? It's the option that we've been using for a long time now, but they've been around for a long time, and it's still by far the fastest WordPress theme out there. And most importantly, they have a reputation of not fucking up their product over time, because there's always lots of new products, But people tend to add features and add features and add features, and it starts like, we're the fastest plugin on the market. And 5 years later, it's a huge ball of bloat full of bugs, etc. And so we didn't want something like this. And GenerateBlocks and GeneratePress have proven that they don't take that direction, which is very refreshing in this market, actually.
Part of our decision was also based around like we wanted to keep using the tech that beginners are using as well. So we're not creating some like crazy fancy thing that it's hard to teach and hard to replicate.
I'm never gonna make a tutorial on how to build a site on bricks, that's for sure. Like I would do it for myself, like on the side, but like I see people struggling with WordPress already. I just can't imagine for a second to give them something that advanced, basically, because it's really a lot already. And even the new GenerateBlocks, which was my next point, like the new GenerateBlocks that came out, added a pretty advanced layers to it. Like it has a class system like bricks now, and it makes it by far the most advanced page builder for Gutenberg. So you're still using default block builder, etc. But yeah, you can do pretty advanced stuff, and it's good. But you can stay basic if you want to as well, which is what I think is important for many people. But in general, the new GenerateBlocks is really good, and I've really enjoyed working with it. And we're gonna talk about that.
You've mentioned this class system a couple of times now. Do you want to explain in a bit more detail exactly what it is? Because I think there'll be a lot of people there that aren't really sure. Me being one of them.
Okay, what is a class? A class is essentially a collection of styles you can apply to someone. So imagine a headline on WordPress, right? And it's like, let's say I want this headline to be...
When we talk about headline, we're talking like an H1 at the top of your blog.
Exactly. Yeah. Any not the H1 because it's kind of like special in the WordPress editor, but the H2, for example. Okay. Let's say I'm putting a headline blocks in my WordPress page, and then I style it. So like I make it 48 pixels in size. I put a line height of like 24 whatever. I put a font on it. I put the weight to be semi-bold, so like a bit bold but not too much. Like a 500 or something, and I put a margin at the bottom of like 12 pixels, for example, right? I can put all these styles under a class, right? So it's like, I call it headline style, for example, right? And so every time I apply a headline style to a headline, all these attributes will be put on that headline, basically. So they will all be this 48 pixel size, they will all have that margin at the bottom, etc. every single time. It's basically a way to group all these styles. And so I can apply that anywhere I want on my site once I've built that class, right? But what's really important is like one day you decide that, hey, you know what? My site design is actually imbalanced. I need my headlines to be bigger. They need to be like 52 pixels instead of 48, for example, right? I can just go and edit that class and then put 52 instead of 48. And every single headline on my site that has that class then updates to 52 pixels without me having to go and edit every single page and then change the font size, basically. So it makes your site so much more dynamic. I can do things site level like you can't on the WordPress builder by default,
So it's essentially, if we want to completely redesign our site again today for some reason, because we'd gone insane, we wouldn't have to build it from scratch again. We could just redesign it and change it quickly by changing these classes.
I mean, not everything, because you couldn't change the structure of the HTML. Like the code, the HTML would be the same, but we could change the way. For example, we have these orange buttons on the site, right? Let's say we do an A/B test one day and we realize that green gives us 20% more conversion rate. And we're like, you know what? It's probably worth breaking the brand and just go from orange to green on the buttons because it just makes us more money, right? I can go in the primary button style and I can change the color from this gradient of orange we have to a gradient of green, and every single button on the site is going to be green in 1 minute, basically. And that immediately lifts up our conversion on every single page because we've done that A/B test.
And I guess it doesn't even have to be a conversion thing. It can also be, you mentioned the fact that you built 80% of this site, and there's going to be some imperfections there in like the design and things like that. But if we, like next year, if we wanted to have a pro come in and just tidy up all this stuff, it would be much easier to roll out using the system.
But there's also, it also is so helpful for example, making things responsive. So for example, our headlines, they might be 40, I don't remember the size, I'm saying randomly, right? They might be 48 on desktop, but there may be 32 on mobile, for example, right? if I don't use a system like that, every single time I make a headline, I need to go put 48 size on my desktop, then I need to click on the mobile button, I need to put 32, right? Every single time. With a class, I can just apply my class, and on every screen size, it applies the attributes that I've decided. So I do the work once, and then I just do it quickly. So like my buttons, my headlines, my containers, all of that. And then not only that, but I can go and fix it later as well if something breaks, if something changes. There's a new like iPhones double their resolution next year, and therefore we need to change a little bit these things because otherwise it doesn't look good. We can change that very quickly.
And the implication being that if you're running a large site where you upload a lot of content, you pay people to upload a lot of content, then you can really save a lot of money by having them able to do it much faster by just clicking on that one class and having all these settings apply.
Yeah, and it's like you can go quite crazy with this, like on bricks and people using these CSS frameworks. There's like, for every single padding left, right, etc., they have different sizes. Usually the way this works, like the way people organize themselves, is they use a t-shirt size system. So you basically have, and we have that as well. We have like headline XS, headline S, headline M, headline L, all the way to triple XL, I think we have, or something. But the idea is that you build like a set amount of like spacing, font sizes, etc., and you keep reusing the same, because what that does as well is it builds the consistency on your site. And it's like, it doesn't look amateurish. Like, it's not like everything is a different size, etc. It's just like it's one of these presets that you've spent some time to establish at the beginning of your project. And it's a secondary headline, bam, you have the size, it should be an XL size, you apply the XL size, and then you're done, and you don't have to think about mobile, you don't have to think about all of that. It's all done directly into your class, which saves so much time. So like that's a class system, and GenerateBlocks has this, and Bricks has this as well. A builder like Cadence, I don't think they have it, for example. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Cadence, so great, etc. I think GenerateBlocks is going to be a notch above this at this point for this kind of system. But it's a bit more kind of like hidden, it's just a drop-down box on GenerateBlocks, and it doesn't really tell you what it does. So you need to kind of dig it. But then you can add something on top of that, and that is the pattern system. The pattern system is actually a native WordPress system, so even if you don't use GenerateBlocks, you have it. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to save complex elements as blocks, basically. So I can make, a pros and cons table, for example, right? It's like pros and cons table is like, there's 2 columns, then I need to do my headline with like a colored background. I need to put another box below with my bullets, and I need to do the same thing on the other side, style that with classes, by the way. And then I can just essentially take the block that contains the container that contains everything, and I can save that as a pattern. There's 2 types of patterns in WordPress. There's an unsynced pattern, and there's a synced pattern. An unsynced pattern is a pattern that is basically a block that you can just call, and then you can edit it. So like pros and cons, for example, would be an unsynced pattern, because the pros and cons are different for every blog post, right? And so I would still style the pattern with classes, so I can still change the background color of the pros and cons, etc. if I want to, but I can change the content, right? And then there's synced patterns, which are kind of like basically you make it once and you put it in your site, and then if you edit it anywhere, it's going to edit it everywhere on the site. I'll give you an example of a synced pattern on the site. The featured in bar below with the logos on the homepage, right? Like that has the logos of Ahrefs, HubSpot, Entrepreneur, and Search Engine Journal, right? That is a synced pattern, which means if one day we decide to kick out HubSpot and then we want to put Forbes, because I can't wait to put the Forbes logo on the website, I can do that, and it's going to update this absolutely everywhere we use it, which means sales pages, opt-in pages, homepage, etc., all in one place. I don't need to go and edit, 5, 6, 7, 10 pages, 20 pages. The pattern system is just going to take care of that. So it's quite interesting to brainstorm what elements are going to be reused many times on your site and need to be updated all the time, and essentially build them into a synced pattern. Another synced pattern that we have is actually the slide at the bottom with the CTA, right? Where there's like the free training thing. Why? Because I want to be able to update it in one place. Like let's say we give not 5 tactics, but 7 tactics or 8 tactics or whatever. I can just change that number here. Everywhere that pattern is used is going to be updated, basically. So building these dynamic elements that update together with classes and patterns allows you to manage your site like so much faster and scale it up so much further without losing quality and without while being able to update everything at once, basically.
So quick question here, because in WordPress 6.5, they released partially synced patterns.
They haven't released it actually. I don't think it's there. It's coming up. It's coming up, but it's not there. Partially synced patterns are gonna be cool. We're going very nerdy, but I love this. Partially synced patterns. Think about like a synced pattern. So like a pattern where you would like make it once, so it's the same everywhere on your site. If you modify it somewhere, it modifies everywhere. But you can take some elements that can be overtaken locally. So let's say I want to be able to change my title or like the CTA text in a button, for example, right? But instead of like free download, I want to put like buy it now, for example, right? Then I'll be able to select that element in a partially synced pattern, and I'll be able to overtake that text locally while the rest of the pattern is still synced. So if I change the color in the background, it changes everywhere still. So I'll be able to have some parts of my pattern that are site-wide and some parts that are just for that specific instance that I just called here.
Would you use this in that example you were talking about earlier where you have like a pros and cons box and like the text is local, but the design is
exactly
synced?
Yeah, I would definitely use it for that, for example, so that I can change the way these pros and cons, like it removes the need to use it to do it with classes, which is a little bit more nerdy and hacky. Whereas you'll be able to do that in a much cleaner way through partially synced pattern, which it should come out very soon, actually. Apparently, it's in the next version of WordPress. So potentially by the time this podcast is released, that's going to be live. But basically, if you're not using any of these tools, which I know 99% of people who listen to this podcast are not, then it's a good reason to rework your site, because these are real productivity boosts and essentially hours of people you don't have to pay because you actually can mass update your site and mass manage things. What that requires though is good organization. And that's why I have a few regrets, because I was learning all that stuff when we started. So I'll be honest, our class system is a B- in terms of organization. You know, it's not an A+. And if I was rebuilding it today, I would rebuild it differently, because you need to organize yourself, especially in terms of name conventions, so that, you know, I think we have like 90 classes on the site or something. And so like it's quite challenging, and it's like I can't just go back and change the names because that breaks the HTML basically. So there are like guides on like, I'm not gonna make a whole guide on like how to organize your classes because I feel everyone's gonna tune out. But it's something that you want to think about before you get started, and that's why I said you should work on these elements. And I think that's what we're gonna talk about next anyway, like kind of like the steps through which you should go to actually do the building. So this was just tech. This was just like thinking about tech. I'm not gonna talk about other plugins. It doesn't matter too much, to be honest. Like, and you know the good plugins. If you're listening, if you're still listening, you know. So let's talk about the building, right? Because there's all these systems, you need to build in the right order. If you start building your classes before you've taken care of your fonts, for example, things like that, it's gonna break. It's not gonna work. So there's a pyramid of things to do first. First of all, you have to decide: do I duplicate my existing site, or do I start from scratch on a new WordPress site? If you start from scratch, the pros is it's clean, right? There's nothing else on the site. There's no database that's bloated with all the plugins that you've tried because one day you wanted to try all the plugins in the plugin library. None of that. You have no tech burden left for sure, and you can get started quickly. The problem is you're going to have to rebuild all the pages that are remaining on your site after, which can be a lot of work, especially if you're using different tech. It probably is best for small sites. It's probably not very good for sites like ours, and that's why we went this other way, which is duplicating the website, because you get to start with the same pages. So like the URLs also are maintained, you know, when we did the duplicate. So it's like there was very little checks to do and everything was fine, basically. And you can essentially save some stuff that was done before. Like the posts have not been re-uploaded on the site, for example. They've just been like adjusted, but there was not a full re-upload of all the content of the blog post, for example. And that saved us lots of time. The cons is that before you get started, obviously you're gonna have to strip a lot of stuff, and that's gonna break the site. So for like literally 3 months, we worked on a completely broken site, and you could pretty much see nothing apart from like a couple of elements here and there, because once you remove the tech that we didn't want to keep, everything exploded basically, and then we just had to reassemble the puzzle. And so that's the thing.
And you do have to be careful here, just because you kind of can sometimes get in that situation where there's two versions of reality. If the development goes on long enough, you change something on the live site but not on the dev site, or vice versa, and it's like, it could be a bit icky.
Yeah, and for that we actually use a plugin called WP All Import Pro. that allows you to sync between your live site and the staging site. And what that allowed us to do is keep working on the live site while we were rebuilding. Obviously, like there's lots of posts that came, etc., and just bring them to the staging site basically. And that worked pretty okay. Like it's not too difficult. Most people can do that, I think.
It's a really good plugin, actually. It's the same one we used later on to do the checks whether we had all the URLs built on the old site and the new site.
Yeah.
WP export all, I think is that version.
It's not the same then. No, WP all import and WP. Maybe it's the same. I'm not sure, but WP all import. That's what I can tell you. That's what we used.
If you made it this far, make sure to hit the like button. It really helps us to know what content you enjoy, so we can make more like it. And while you're down there, why not smash the subscribe button as well, so you don't miss out on the next episode. All right, now back to the podcast.
Let's talk about the order of things people need to go through, though. It's quite important. The first thing is, when you install WordPress, you should go through your customizer settings. On GenerateBlocks, that is setting up your fonts, setting up your global colors, setting up your default container size, so like the main container of your website, like how large is it, etc. Setting up, font size, all of that. And after that, you should be working on your class system by building basic elements. What is an H1, what is an H2, what is an H3, what is an H4, and build that with a class, basically, or multiple classes, so that you can start building that system that you can reuse. And you can, if you start from scratch with this, you can update everything on your site. If you start later with it, some parts of your site are not going to update if you do that, and that just kills the whole system. So it's quite important. Once you've built your first classes, you build your first patterns, essentially your first templates. So, for example, basic pattern we have is a container. So simple, right? But we basically have 3 widths for content on the site. We have like wide, medium, and narrow. And it's like, the way it works is you have one container that is the broad container, and then one container inside that's just the right size. So again, we don't have containers that go in many different sizes and the site looks very unprofessional. Like, you look at a page and it's all on one line, and then some areas can be narrower, but when they're narrow, they're always the same narrow, not like a little bit different, etc. So you can build your containers, you can build your headline, buttons, images, that kind of stuff using classes and patterns. And then after that, once you've built these things, then you start building your site. When we use GenerateBlocks or GeneratePress in this case, we use something that they call elements. Elements in GeneratePress allow you to take a section of your site, for example, your footer, and be like, I'm building this now on, like it's a post, but actually it's going to show in my footer, basically. So you build your elements one by one, you build your header, your footer, and then you go through your main post. So like your main page is like post hero, post section, related post, end of post CTA. You build everything one by one. It takes a long time. But there's no real strategy in there. Just slowly build it. Binge the channels that I'm going to give at the end. I'm going to give some resources that will teach you how to do a lot of that stuff, actually. The thing is, I didn't do everything, and you can hire help to do that step because it's quite a bit of grunt work, actually. Like, it takes a long time. It's quite interesting how I hired for that role. I know we tried multiple times. Like, we started with a full-time developer who didn't work out, so we fired him. And then we tried to hire. You ran one round of hire, but I ended up with essentially the same profile of like developers who want to custom code everything. And I was like, no, I'm not falling into that trap again. I want to be able to edit this. This is not good. And so I hired what I call a duct tape developer, essentially someone who does not have a technical background, but who builds websites. And the reason I wanted that is because it's who I am and who a lot of our employees are. And I wanted that person to think the same way and use the same kind of systems that we do, even if that means it's slightly less optimized, even if that means it's slightly slower or whatever. The point is we can do things, right? It's like,
how did you specifically find that person, though? Because it's not like it's not category on Upwork.
I mean, I just posted my job offer, but then that's in his application. He was like I had some pretty advanced stuff. So, for example, the table of content is pretty advanced, right? The interactive table of content, that was quite a bit of work. And he was like, I don't know if I can do this because I can't do JavaScript, for example, and so on. And I was like, perfect, you're hired. And it's like, it sounds crazy, but like also like I have this podcast where I talk about site speed with Brian Jackson, etc. It's like he could hang talking on that level, like talking about this Perf Matter plugin, how to optimize it, etc. So he knew. I would say he's like 30% better than me, something like this. At least like he's ahead, but not too much, And yeah, he could talk about these things. He knew, like this WP Import Pro, it was him who did it, for example. Like he had tricks, you know. And when I chatted with him, he had that. At the same time, he could not hard code things. He physically could not, right? So it's like it was not an option. We even considered hiring someone else to do it at some point because we were blocked, but we managed to do it actually by literally copying code on another site or something. But like that's what I wanted, a duct tape Dave. It was much cheaper too, by the way. He was $40 an hour, which is pretty cheap for a dev, I would say. A native English speaker as well, so no communication problem. And the way it would work, it was pretty simple. I would make a weekly to-do list for him. Like, you know, I made an issue database on our Notion, and I would just make a list of like 5 things we want to do this week. I would catch up with him on Monday. I would catch up with him on Thursday when he's done or mostly done, and make another list I would give him the next Friday. He would start, you know what I mean? And he would just keep going like that.
So essentially you built a 1-week sprint cycle.
Yeah, and then we just catch up, see, is it done, is it not done? Do we have any challenges? Do we need to change something like this? And then just double check. And that's it. It's like, it was literally 2 calls a week.
And you were doing some stuff in here as well. It wasn't 100% him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that he doesn't know. Like, it's like how funnels are set up. And it's like even building sales pages, like, I'm not sure I would trust. Like, it's a mix of like marketer role and technical role for this. And it's like, I don't know if I could have handed that off to someone like that. But like, for example, he built the homepage, for example, and like, you know, the sliders, things like that. Like these were things I could not have done. And he's done that. And I would just bring him on my stuff when I was blocked, basically.
And did you say you were using AI to help you with some of this work as well?
Yeah, some CSS is definitely written by AI, actually. I've used quite a bit of AI.
Do you want to just explain briefly how that might function then?
I mean, usually I would literally upload a screenshot of like the Figma on ChatGPT, and then the screenshot of where I am right now on the site, like the bullet points, for example, right? Like, you know, we have these little blue bullet points on the new site, and so they're custom CSS, right? And I'd be like, hey, this is what I want, and this is what I have. Help me write custom CSS, and I would just paste the CSS. Half the time it wouldn't work, right? Even really 3/4 of the time it wouldn't work. But by giving it feedback on like, or like giving it screenshots of what was broken, like, you know, like it would be not a bullet, but like a huge like line or something like that, like something weird. And I would just upload back the screenshot of the output, and I would just kind of keep tweaking the code. And so I would kind of do that, and then I would pass it on to the dev to double check. Like I would give him a task of like, I'll double check that this is optimized or something. And I would run it to a CSS optimizer, for example, and it would just do it for me. Because I can read CSS, but I can't really write it from scratch. Like I don't know all the properties by heart, you know? And then I would tweak it a little bit myself. But really AI did a lot of CSS for me, actually. And it's not perfect, but it's kind of nice to like hack your website, basically. And upload screenshots. Like you can upload screenshots of code, you can upload screenshots of outputs, you can upload screenshots of Figma, and it understands very well. So yeah, use AI. And I think Claude 3.5 Sonnet is now even better. I used ChatGPT 4 at the time, like Turbo probably. But Sonnet is apparently a lot better at coding now. So I would say it's definitely an option for people who are on low budget or want to do things themselves and are a little bit hacky. I think that's the power of AI, right? It's removing the need of technical knowledge to do some things. And I think that's like eventually you'll just design the website on Figma, it will just do it, right? And I think yeah, that was a cool use case and a cool way to learn how to use AI in general. So that's pretty much the building phase. There's not too much to it. It's mostly a grind, and it's mostly about doing the first steps in the right order. I think that's really what's important. You need to use your classes right away, otherwise you might as well not use them. Then obviously, before you release your site, you should QA it. Something that we've done okay, but I think I could have been a bit more organized here, if I'm 100% honest. But we had that bug list in Notion. Like I had a database with like issues. And like every time we'd go through it, we'd just log it. We'd just log issues. And then every evening for 2 hours, I would just go through issues and fix them or assign them to the dev, basically. And we did that for a few weeks. My wife is very high attention to detail, so she was very good at finding all these issues. and annoying me with it. So eventually I did it. Send the site to several people to test it as well, like, you know. And then I used the BrowserStack. BrowserStack is a tool that allows you to test the site on different browser. Like you can test, you know, older versions of the browser, or you can test on like Linux or weird use cases that allow you to maybe get a different perspective for the site. And really, it was just a game of squashing the bugs, but accepting that there was going to be issues at the time at which we release anyway. Just hopefully not too many.
It's a game you can never win completely as well, right? You have someone on a 10-year-old version of Internet Explorer. It doesn't support some of the stuff that modern websites do. So it's just about doing as much as you reasonably can with the sort of common devices and common browsers.
I agree. It's like it's just like my benchmark is it better than the previous site? And if it was, then fine, I'm okay with that, basically.
And what about the sort of SEO optimization? Like, was there any major changes from the old site to the new site?
Not too much, because honestly, it was okay. I mean, like the thing is, like I've actually lost some stuff. I feel like some stuff was like not needed. Like I've lost some of the schema, for example. Like, it's good to have it, but like we redo it later. But I think I saw the research from Cyrus Shepard that showed that like sites that overdo schema tend to rank lower. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna bother rebuilding it for now, and we'll see how it goes. You know. So it's like I've left some stuff out, but there was not much to do. Like, I mean, we had copied the site, so all the title tags were done. All of that was done.
Was the internal linking the same in the new site versus the old one? Was there any changes there?
Mostly. I mean, the internal link was pretty good. Like inside the content, we're pretty strong at internal linking. So there was like, it's not something that I counted as part of the project. It's more like ongoing work for SEO. And it's like, I didn't want to put it in the scope. There was enough. It was mostly like, does it render properly on mobile? Do I have this weird horizontal scroll that some pages have because some elements too wide and things like that? Like I wanted it to be a good experience. Like the mobile menu, we have a new mobile menu as well. It was actually bugged at the launch. I had to fix it a day later. But like, yeah, things like that. Then once you basically have gotten a bunch of people through it, you've made a list of issues, and you start to slow down. Like you feel the list of issues start slowing down, or like they're smaller, they're less important. Then eventually you start putting a date on the launch, basically. I remember it's like, it was so hard for me because we kept finding bugs and you're like, oh, when can we launch it? When can we launch it? It's like, eventually kind of like, I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. And so what I did is I did a pre-launch checklist and a post-launch checklist. The first thing that you need to do is a list of redirects. For example, we've moved a lot of pages under their own post type. So sales pages, opt-in pages, thank you pages, etc. Like they have different URLs, right? Because they're in their own post type, it's much easier for us to manage. But as a result, if it's not redirected, like it breaks funnels, literally. It can break things. So we made a big spreadsheet of, you know, what is the original URL? Where does it need to redirect? And always, 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 always do your redirects on Cloudflare. Cloudflare is free, and redirects are done on a DNS level, which means it's, you know, way faster than doing it inside the WordPress plugin, and it doesn't use your resources. So it's like they're invisible. Now, if you open one of our redirects, it's just as fast as if there was no redirect, basically. So Cloudflare is the only place to do redirects. Then the thing I did also before the launch is I tested the site side of the speed optimization. So you know, we don't run with caching, etc. when we're building it, because it's just annoying. You need to clear it all the time to see what you did. But then I implemented all of that before we launched. So I implemented WP Rocket and Perf Matters. We have the same setup as before, really, except we have less optimization in WP Rocket. But the idea is like to make sure that it doesn't break the site, because sometimes you're building, you're not optimizing the speed, then you optimize the speed and just stuff breaks. So for example, the slider broke when we implemented WP Rocket, and we had to kind of like exclude it from the optimization so it doesn't break. So you run that before you launch your site, so you don't have to deal with this at the moment of the launch. Like these plugins are already running. That was mostly it, and then obviously checking that the old URLs and new URLs are matching. So we did a whole check in a spreadsheet, list of all URLs on the old site, extracted from Ahrefs. So we used the Ahrefs site audit, and we also audited the staging site, and we just matched them inside the spreadsheet, make sure that there's nothing broken, and then just basically fixed anything or added a redirect in the list if we needed to. And that was pretty much it for the pre-launch. Like, because we had a copy of the site, there wasn't much else to do. It's not that difficult. Post-launch, First thing is removing the no index tag, because when you work on a staging site, you no index it. It's in it's in settings, reading, if you're in WordPress. So make sure you remove that immediately. Otherwise, you're going to lose all your SEO traffic and you'll just blame you on your website, but it's just a stupid mistake you've made. The second thing to do just after that is to implement your redirects on Cloudflare. So it's like we use the bulk redirect function in Cloudflare, which is, as I said, the best one. The third thing that, honestly, we forgot some of it, is to update any external service that relies on the old URLs that you may have. So in our case, we will have deadline funnel, add audiences, etc. You know, like people visit a sales page, you want them to see your ads, etc. If the URL has changed, obviously that doesn't work. So that kind of stuff you want to update immediately. And after that, it's like extensive testing on different browsers, etc. One little bug that we had that I could not squash is that the site was working fine when we launched it. And when you would click on the site from Google, you'd get like a really broken version of the site for some reason for like 36 hours. And I realized it's actually a setting in Cloudflare. So Cloudflare has a setting you can turn on that allows Google to cache your HTML. And so what it did is Google had an old version of the HTML and the new CSS.
I was trying to match them
together.
It's
like it was a beautiful array of colors. But that was a big problem, and I couldn't figure it out. So it's like actually in your site speed optimization in Cloudflare, there is something called SGX Exchange. If people want to really know what it is, if you turn that off and you reindex your site in Webmaster's Console, the problem goes away within a few hours. I've seen several people have this problem on social media, by the way. It's one of the site speed setting in Cloudflare, and they don't really explain what it is, but eventually I figured it out. Regenerate your sitemap and resubmit it in Webmaster's Console. I resubmit my homepage to like recrawl on Google as well, so they start crawling everything. And then after that, I implement site speed optimization. We use Bunny as a static CDN, and we still use Cloudflare APO to just cache the HTML. It's like I didn't want to change it because it's fast. Basically, it's working for us. And then finally, I just made sure that everything fires properly, like Google Analytics, Tag Manager, ads, etc. Like, you know, that nothing's broken, basically. And that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much the process of rebuilding the site from scratch, which was a long project.
There's a few other things I want to ask you about. First, this was maybe the Achilles heel of the project, and something we were working on the day the new site went live is featured images. Now, we've always had a problem with that. I think when we were looking at other sites to kind of get inspiration, we saw that evidently everybody else also has a problem with this, because no one really does it in a way that looks great, but can be easily implemented by a member of your team without design skills. So talk us through what we did here.
I mean, mostly I gave that task to someone else, and they redid all the featured images. Then I looked at the grid. It's like there probably is some left on the site if you guys want to check, because we're redoing them now. But like this kind of like blue background with some random Midjourney image on it and way too much text. That's what came out on the other side. So they redid all the images. Then I looked at the post grids, and it looked disaster. It was so bad. It's like I hated it. And so I just canceled. I just stopped them working. I was like, don't do anything. Stop now. And the thing is, like, featured images are such a hard thing to do properly, and it's hard to give it personality, but it's so important for social media sharing as well. And so like, well, I just ended up doing it myself, to be honest. So like the new featured ones, I just did it myself. I just found like some character and Shutterstock. I kind of went back like OG Authority Hacker for the people who followed us for a long time. Like we had this little character on our images, and I wanted to do something similar because I actually missed it. I felt like it was kind of cool, actually. And so like I found like a collection of character on Shutterstock. Cost me 199 euros to download 750 of them or something. So enough to make all the featured images we'll probably need for the site. And I just made a template on Canva that kind of like reminds you of the brand with the little grid and noise and everything, but also has different colors so that the grid effect looks like a little bit interesting. Like if each one has a different color when they're next to each other. And yeah, but it's quite a bit of work to make them. Like it's not so simple. Like you need to cut the vectors, etc. Like it's just hard to give that to someone who's not a designer. But also, I hate the idea of paying $70 for a featured image. It just feels like not very well spent amount of money. So I've just built my templates and we're just gonna do that. Now making one takes me maybe 5 minutes or something, and my wife can do them, and I might train some other team members to do them. But yeah, you're never better served than by yourself. Can you say that in English?
Yeah, it makes sense.
The job is, yeah, the job's better done.
If you want something done right, do it yourself.
That's how you say it in English.
So during this whole process, we kind of started around August last year. We're looking at sort of 10 months in total, but it wasn't really 10 months. Like you were building that for just really 2.5, 3 months at the end there. Like we tried a few other options that didn't work out, and like the design, the bulk of it was done fairly early on. So if you were to do it again, how quickly do you think you could run this project?
I mean, do I count the designer time as well?
Yeah, everything.
So designer time is quite long, I think. I think it's like the planning is like it's easy 3 months, I think. But again, it's not full time, right? It's just like you prepare some feedback for a designer and then see you next week, basically. And then you just do that again every single week for 2 or 3 months. But I think getting the base right is quite important, because it's like if you have to figure stuff out when you're building, it's a pain in the ass. So I would say 2-3 months for the designing, and then 2 months for building, maybe something like this, and that's it. I think it's like if I don't need to refine the developer guy and I can just go grab him and let's make another site, then we can build a site in 2 months. And the thing is, like, a lot of things we've built in this we can actually reuse on any other site at this point. So it's like when you build into a framework like GeneratePress, you can you do it once and then you can reuse later. And so yeah, I think in 2 months I could rebuild what we have today. But to be honest, I'd rather just further build this one, because we still have stuff to do actually. Like roundup reviews are not designed, single reviews are not designed, mobile table of content is not designed. There are definitely more things that this site needs. It's just a cool new base, and a base where we can actually do things. But if you ask me, like, what's the percentage completion of the total project, I would say 65%.
Okay, so you still think we got another few months before you be in that kind of like happy place?
Yeah, definitely. I really think that if we make custom page templates for different post templates, etc., we can get higher rankings as well, and so on. So it's like now is the time to actually do the optimization part. Same, like, we have some post templates that we use a lot. Like, we write for a lot of similar keywords, and I feel like we need to design custom. Now we can design really custom templates for these posts, and like not just look like a generic blog post, but some almost like a custom page, right? It makes sense when you use it 100 times or something. And so like now we have this tech capability, and it's like it would be a shame to stop now. It's like now we can capitalize on it and push our advantage, compared to the competition, and that's what I intend to do basically.
And my last question is, if you were to do it all again, but on a super low budget, where would you put your resources, or where would you spend money?
I mean, if it's me, I'll spend it all on design, I think.
Okay.
And I'll just build everything myself. But I understand that not everyone is as comfortable as me in building, right? So it's like if you're not, spending what you're not good at, basically. If the problem is if you're not good at design, not good at building, then you need to spend on both of these, right? And it's challenging because low cost builders, they will build it like shit, to be honest. Not all of them, but a lot of them. It's like I've seen how people do things, and I'm shaking my head every time. My recommendation is, before you spend any money, nerd out on a couple of these WordPress resources that I'm gonna give you now, so that you don't have to pay someone to build it, so that you can actually pay for the design, because that's much harder to learn. And then you pay for the design, or you just mostly copy another design. Like if you want to be really cheap, like find another site you really like that's not in your industry, so that it doesn't feel like you copied them, and then just copy that and learn WordPress yourself. And here's 4 resources you can use for that. 1, the admin bar. It's a small YouTube channel that talks almost exclusively about GeneratePress and gives you like simple tricks, like 10-minute videos on simple tricks on how to do stuff. Very, very, very good. WP Tuts, which is more on bricks, but also like a lot of WordPress plugins that can help you. So for example, like we use a gallery plugin called Happy Files that allows us to classify the different images in different folders, etc. So I got it from this channel, for example. Dave Foy is also a bunch of GeneratePress tutorial, and Michael Lever actually has a membership with like pre-built GeneratePress frameworks. That's very nerdy, but I think for like $39, you can actually steal a lot of stuff from there legally because you're paying for it. And so it's a pretty cool place to essentially get a lot of GeneratePress advice. And also the GeneratePress Facebook community is pretty good, actually. So it's like, I would learn all of that.
And we'll put links to all those resources on the show notes that go along with this podcast as well.
Yeah, and it's like if you have no money, you need to give time instead. Basically, that's the reality of it. It's like you either have time, money, or talent, you know, and you spend 2 out of 3. And it's like, to be honest, it's like I've done that. I've done the learning for GeneratePress. It's not the end of the world. I think Bricks is more challenging. It would take me longer, but if I was building sites full time, I would probably switch to Bricks. So yeah, that's pretty much the rebuild. Fingers crossed our conversions hold up, but so far so good. And yeah, it's a really, like, looking at the results now, I'm pretty happy actually. It's not perfect, but I think we've stepped up quite a lot. And most importantly, we can justify it looking at the increase in conversion, be like, okay, that was actually time well spent, because it's going to help us both deploy more things faster, which should help us do better. And conversions are already up, basically.
And as you said, this is just the start, really. This is the base that we can then build all this other cool stuff on top of as well.
Yeah, you know, I think websites have a lifespan of like 5 years, you know? Like I think every 5 years you should probably redesign them. It's like we have 5 years now, but it's like you need to understand when you're at the beginning of the cycle to like push your advantage, because as time passes, like you're essentially falling behind in tech slowly. As you know, I'm talking about this class system is super cool, but in 5 years there might be something way cooler where you have like an AI agent that pre-builds everything and it's like 10 times faster and so on. But we can't implement it in our current site. So it's like you need to understand when you are at an advantage and take advantage and like, you know, push it while you have it. And that's probably a period of like 2 to 3 years. The last 2 years of a website, you tend to just be slugging behind and having other projects to finish before you do this. So it's like, yeah, it's time to take advantage of this now, basically. Okay, well, I guess that is the podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it. I was pretty nerdy, but also like, you know, people want us to share real life experience. That's real life experience. That's something that you can tangibly see. You can go check the notes that we're sharing below, like my inspiration notes and so on, if you want some ideas on how to do this, how we structure this stuff. Redesigning your site, even if you've been killed by a Google update, might be a good idea. I'm pretty sure at some point Google is going to have to turn some of what they've done around. And when that happens, that should pay off. But even if it doesn't, like eventually, like even from social traffic, even from a trust building perspective, etc., it's quite important. So maybe don't go as far as we have, but it's still a good idea to make sure you use all these new systems. So hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye-bye.